Hello, BookTube. It's Friday, so I thought I'd do a bit of a Friday reads. It's not just this past week, what I've read, but it's what I've read probably for most of March. After having, or I still, well, I've had COVID-19, and I still have symptoms, so it's probably into the long COVID. One of them, as you can tell, it's the breathing, and that's sort of the main one that's really noticeable. And lack of sleep. I don't really sleep much anymore. I lay down, my breathing gets really bad. I start wheezing, so I can't sleep. So I sit in the chair here, which the breathing is better, and doze for many, many hours in between things. So, but also I think I've got what's called brain fog. Just sort of, it's a weird thing of not being able to concentrate. I can read, but if I read something too technical, I can read the words, but it's not sort of going in. I don't know what I've read. And that's concerning because it's now going on into what, the 7th, 8th week or something like that. I don't know how long that's been. Since, I guess the first week of March. So, well, no, actually, so it's about, no. Yeah, so it's about the 6th week, I guess, really, like, I think, February. So, yeah, first week of February. So it's probably the 6th, 7th week. So, but that's what I mean. I can't even think, and it's sort of try to pull words out. I can see the word there in a sense, but I can't pull it out. But so I can't concentrate very long on things, or at least reading. My mind wanders, but I'm still forcing myself to read, and very slowly. So since then, I've been reading just plain fiction, easy fiction to read. And so I can read a little bit, I'll read a little bit, and then I get distracted, and my mind does. I doze off a little bit, take a little trip down the hall, come back, have something to drink or eat, and then continue on. So I do that, and throughout the night as well. And then I've been watching films, and there's a connection there. And I sort of started, I think it was I started with this one, The Lost Weekend by Charles Jackson. It's a novel written in 1944. Yeah, 1944. This is a vintage reprint with an introduction by Blake Bailey, who's done, I think, a biography of Charles Jackson as well. And this was done in 2013. The reprint. It's a fabulous book. Very well written. Very easy to read. Very little dialogue in it. It is mostly text, narration. It's in the author's brain, and it's about a writer, a weekend, and he's an alcoholic, and it's basically his sort of world for that weekend. It's the lost weekend, and he sort of keeps saying, "Oh well, just one drink, that's all I need." Like, he plays tricks with his mind, but he knows this kind of stuff, that he knows he's doing this, but he does it anyway. He still does it. It's a compulsion in a sense, and it's quite fascinating. It goes through the whole thing, and in the connection to the film is Billy Wilder's 1945 film, The Lost Weekend, with Ray Milland. It's a fabulous film. This is a Eureka edition. And it's got a little booklet with it. As you can see, which I love these. They got a little booklet. That's Ray Milland there. And there's Billy Wilder, the director, on the back. And he wrote this with Charles Brackett. It was, his writing partner. They did film. There's differences in it, obviously, but just a fabulous film and a fabulous book. So that's the first one I sort of read, and I'd like to actually go into more detail at some point, sort of with stuff like this. I've been saying, I mentioned this sometime middle of or beginning of last year, or middle of last year, I guess it was, to sort of compare the book to films that I sort of like, and this is one of them. And then we move to Nevil Shute's On the Beach. It's a post-apocalyptic book or novel where there's Third World War, and there was enough nuclear weapons sort of set off and exploded in the northern hemisphere that everybody's dead in the northern everything, not just everybody, everything is dead in the northern hemisphere, and it's set in Australia, and with a American nuclear submarine that's goes there, and they just try, but they're just waiting for the radiation to come to them and kill them as well. And it's a fabulous book, and it was made into a fabulous film with Gregory Peck, Ava Gardner, Fred Astaire, and Anthony Perkins in 1959, directed by Stanley Kramer, who'd also done Inherit the Wind and so forth. And it's a fabulous film. So I took a while to read that and then watch the film again. And another one that I really like, this one I'd like to actually do, probably one of the first ones if I'm doing a comparison, is Graham Greene's The Ministry of Fear. And I'd not read this before. I've read other Graham Greene books, and I liked them, but I don't know, this really hit a chord. I really, really liked it. It's the style of writing. There's a few books that when I read it, like, to me, they seem very English, very British, and this definitely is. And I want to now read more of Graham Greene to see if he carries that through with other things. There's not too many. Like, I know they're British authors or English authors, but a lot of times it doesn't quite gel so much. And it's not sort of Britishness or Englishness, but I really felt that with this one. It's basically about a guy who's he's remorseful for a mercy killing of his wife, in the book, that is, and he goes to a fete because he remembers it as a kid and he loved those. He wins a cake with some prompting from a clairvoyant, but it was a mistake, and it turns out there is microfilm in it with secrets, and they try to get it and kill him. It's Nazis. This was written in 1943, and this is a vintage reprint of it. So they try to kill him, but he winds up losing his memory for a while, and he's in an asylum that sort of, they try to, it's a ministry of fear, basically. And then that was made into a film by Fritz Lang. Ministry of Fear, again with Ray Milland. And this was made in 1944, so it's just, again, a year later, shortly after. It's very different from the book. Characters' names are changed. He doesn't have his amnesia. He's not in this asylum, which apparently really, Graham Greene hated the adaptation, and um, apparently Fritz Lang wanted to do the book into a film, and he sort of asked his agent to see if they could sort of get the rights to buy it, Green. But then they found out Paramount was buying it, so Paramount bought it and asked him to do it, and he jumped at it. And so the story goes that he jumped at it and then got the script and thought it was awful and wanted out of the deal. But he had the contract, so he couldn't get out of the deal. So he did as best as he could. That's his story. And it is fantastic. It's typical Fritz Lang. Like, there's just some, night scenes. Like, I love his dark scenes and night scenes where it's raining and London, even though, it's not made in London, but it's, it just has a look to it. It's kind of a film noir look where there's wet streets, rainy streets, and that type of thing. And yeah, so it's a good film. It's very different from the book, as I say, but it's still very enjoyable, and both were. I really liked the book. And then we move on to one that I sort of finished. See, I finished that, I think, at the beginning of the week, or over the weekend, and then I started this one, Rogue Male, by Jeffrey Household. Just another fabulous book, mostly narration. It's about a guy, Thorndike, I think. Well, no, actually, they don't name who he is here. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But it's about a guy who goes to a European country. He's a big game hunter. He's from the aristocracy. And he's going to kill or at least he wasn't sure whether he was, but the idea was he was going to assassinate a leader of a European country that was sort of a fascist leader. It's not mentioned as Hitler, but it's very, very clear that it's Hitler. And this was done in written in 1939 actually. And then this is an Orion publication, a reprint of it. So, and he's just about, like, he could have done it. He sort of wants to prove it to himself that he can do it. And he clicks the trigger, and then he puts the bullet in. And then he gets rumbled by a guard, a sentry. So he gets taken down to the big house, and he gets tortured, and they're going to kill him. Because, they want him to sign. They're going to kill him. So they throw him off a cliff. And he doesn't die. He lands in a tree a little bit and then falls down further and lands into a marsh, mud. So he's cut up. He's badly, his fingernails have been pulled off. They've bashed up one of his eyes and burnt one of his eyes. But he sort of drags himself along and hides from the pursuers after, because they were going to go the next day to say, oh, look at what we found, accident happened. So he does this, and he is able to escape by stowing away with the help of the first mate on a ship to go back to England. But he's still pursued. By the European agents that are sort of unnamed here, but clearly Nazis. And so he has to sort of go to ground as, of wounded animal, and he is wounded in a sense. So he goes to Dorset, I think it is, or Devon or Dorset, sort of forget now. And he sort of digs out a hole, and he lives sort of underground. But they do find him. The Nazi guy finds him and sort of seals him in and says that, if you sign this saying that the government, the British government, was behind this, then we will let you go. You can go back to your life. He refuses to do this. He kills. He kills. The Nazi guy. So he gets out, and the whole sort of backstory is that the reason why he did all this was because he was in love with a woman who. The story really, it doesn't tell you really anything what happened to her, but it looks like she probably was a spy. She was caught and executed. So, but he gets rid of the. There's lots of adventures, but he gets rid of the Nazi guys, the pursuers, and then he decides to disappear still. But he takes the identity of the Nazi guy, and he's back into Europe, and he knows that he's gonna probably die, but he's going to make sure he gets Hitler, or the fascist leader that's in the story. So, and it was a very, very big book at the time. There's been 2 films made out of it. Again, going back to Fritz Lang, Manhunt, with Walter Pidgeon. Joan Bennett is in it, and Saunders. What's his name? Saunders. George Saunders is the Nazi, and it's very, very different from the book. It's very different, this treatment. In some ways, it's enjoyable to watch, but it's a very anti-Nazi film, and it's again one of, I think, 4 or 5 or something that Fritz Lang did that are sort of very anti-Nazi. And they did this one, and this was done in 1944, or no, 42, I think it was, or 41. I think 41. But it was like in contravention, sort of of the sort of Neutrality Act that they had done, and there was going to be questions in Congress about it, but the Americans entered Second World War, so it was thrown aside. But the big difference is Joan Bennett's character, that she's not in the book at all. She's sort of a prostitute, but they couldn't say she's a prostitute, so they sort of put a sewing machine in her apartment to make it look like she's a seamstress, but they don't really go there very often. And obviously she's doing a fake Cockney accent, but she does quite well with it. And yeah, it's sort of, and he does, he has to flee and everything like this, but he and he digs out a hole in the ground again in Dorset or Devon, and he kills George Saunders, the Nazi, and then the war has started, because it's all set in 1939 anyway. And then it ends, with him, he's joined the military army of some sort, and we're talking about the movie now. And the last thing of him is they're supposed to be parachuting at a certain point. They had an objective to do stuff. So, but he, when in the plane, he jumps out with his precision rifle and parachutes down into Europe somewhere, and he's going to kill Hitler. It sort of sounds a bit hokey to a certain extent, but it is again, it's just visually stunning, as would be from Fritz Lang. Again, sort of the London streets, what fills in for London, and the way the camera angles are, and a lot of night scenes, wet streets. I just love that. But yeah, and then that was actually remade in the 75, I think it was, for British TV, as called Rogue Male, as the book is. I'm not even sure if I mentioned that, Rogue Male, but that's the name of the book. Fritz Lang's, they called it Manhunt. Uh, with Peter O'Toole, it's a little closer to the book, and it follows the same storyline. John Standing is the sort of Englishman that's a Nazi, and he kills him, but he doesn't sort of, like in the book, he doesn't flee back or go back to Europe after Hitler. Um, uh, his uncle, which is Earl of, uh, or the character, but his uncle is, I can't even think of his name. See, this is where the brain fog comes in. His uncle is, my brain is just gone. He played Alistair Sim. And it sort of ends with him coming back, and then, the war started, and Alistair Sim says, Winston wants to see you. So basically now he has, by the looks of it, authorization to go and assassinate Hitler. So that's where that ends. But yeah, it's still a great, powerful film. And Peter O'Toole is just fantastic in it, and it was fun to see again, Alistair Sim. But yeah, that's what I've been doing, and currently, for the last couple of days, because I haven't been that good, I've started reading again, and I have read this before, Lost Horizon, by James Hilton? Yeah, James Hilton. This is a vintage, again, reprint, vintage books, originally published 1933, and that'll be sort of, I'll continue reading that, and then I will watch the Frank Capra's Lost Horizon with Ronald Colman and Jane Wyatt, which is a fabulous film. And this is sort of a digibook special edition Capra collection that they did several like this. And it's got a booklet sort of, well, it's made it as a book basically. But yeah, so that'll be my upcoming reading, and that'll probably take me over the weekend here, well into next week, a little bit, and then I'll move on to something else. I've got a number of things here that I've been sort of, like, I had to dig these out, but I've been buying these for a while. I've got The Third Man by Graham Greene. I've got All Quiet on the Western Front with by Eric Maria Remarque. And then I've got the sequel too, which hasn't been made, I don't think, into a film, The Way Back. Also another film that I really liked, with Ray Milland again, Beau Geste. So there's a cheap, by PC Ren, Beau Geste. It's a Dover Thrift edition. And there's more here that these are ones I've sort of pulled aside to do. Journey to the Center of the Earth, Jules Verne, First Man on the Moon by H.G. Wells, another Jules Verne, Mysterious Island. This is a Wordsworth edition, so it's not a great translation. And also, it's a play by Noel Coward, which I hadn't read. This is sort of like, it's a one-act play. There's a whole bunch of them, but this has, with Leslie Howard, I can't even think of the name, but it's a fabulous film anyway. It's sort of a lot of it's to do in sort of a train, in a train station. What's the name of it? Well, people probably know. Somebody will probably put it in the thing saying, "Oh, that's what it is." Well, yeah, I know what it is, but I can't think of it. But yeah, so that's sort of thing that I've been doing. And I've got these, and I've got a number of other ones to read. Brief Encounter, there it is. Yeah, because I've got the BFI sort of guide to a Brief Encounter. That's what it is. And I also have the Touch of Evil, which is, but there's no sort of novel, I don't think, to that, but that's just sort of BFI classics book. But yeah, this is sort of my reading for a while now until I can get back into sort of other stuff. I do read the booklets with things, but I do struggle with that because it's sort of nonfiction, but I slowly read through those. And yeah, so that's it basically for my reading and an upcoming reading. So and well, it's longer than I sort of expected, so it's not so bad. I might read Bojess next, but I've got other things, like I've got Shane. I forget who the author of that is. I've got a lot of other stuff that I would buy in sort of books. Last year, because while I was working from home, so I was saving £200-300 a month on taxi fares to get to work. So I used some of that money. I bought Blu-rays every month. I was buying a set amount of Blu-rays. I was buying a bunch of Penguin classics that I hadn't had for a number of months, and then with this as well. So I was buying quite a bit of stuff that I was sort of stockpiling, which I'm glad I did, because now the way I feel, I'm thankful I've got all these Blu-rays to sort of fall back on, because I've got Prime. Amazon Prime, but there's not much on there anymore for me to watch, and I think I might actually get rid of it shortly, just to save some extra money, because that would be like £8 a month. I could buy just a few pounds extra with it. I could buy another Blu-ray, or double it every 2 months, I suppose, for the good ones. But yeah, so there's all sorts of stuff that I have here that I can sort of play with while I try to get better, and I don't know how long that's going to be, because I'm not working, so I don't need to worry about that. But yeah, so that's it, BookTube. I think I'll be back with a tag. Steve Donahue has tagged me in a tag that sounds kind of interesting, so I think I'm going to do that. I've still got other ones to sort of catch up on, but I think I'll do that today and try over the next week catch up on a few things. So I'll pull it a little closer here so I can turn it off, and I will see you in a few moments, BookTube. Thank you.